Hello, and
Here.
welcome to another episode of Anthony Arkin Talks to That Guy Who Apparently Doesn't Like Movies.
I take it back. That was an unkind thing to say. I know you like movies. I know you love them. I think this is going to be maybe a more, our wheelhouse kind of night, though.
You think this will be a more amicable discussion?
My money is on that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see when we get around to it, won't we?
Okay. I'm getting nervous already, but
really? Oh, okay. Well, I just don't want to tip my hand too early. I will tell you. Well, first of all, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm warm. I'm not as warm as I would be if I lived in the Pacific Northwest, but I am warm. And
what's going on in the Pacific Northwest? I don't know anything, and I'll tell you why I don't know anything about what's going on in the world right now in a minute. But
it's just very, very, very hot. It's the hottest that it's ever been there in the history of time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I'm not. I'm not a news service, so please don't take my word for it. It was very hot. That's all I know. It's very hot here. It's just hot.
Okay.
Humid.
Well, we have big news about the show. We got some.
I was excited about that. Yeah. Tell everybody what's going on.
Everybody who's watching right now will know that our podcast has reached 1,000 downloads.
Yay.
Which I think for a show with 2,000 episodes is pretty extraordinary.
Well, we don't have to get into the details, I guess, for everybody, but but it feels good. It feels nice.
We have far fewer than 1,000 downloads. I mean, far fewer than 2,000 episodes. So that means our episodes are being downloaded.
Do you know where the farthest afield from us is downloading?
Reaches are?
Yeah.
I can look it up. I have to go to our dashboard, which will take me
very curious.
Sing a song and entertain the people while I'm going to our dashboard.
No, I won't. But I'll keep the conversation going. I'll keep the ball up in the air as I want to do.
Okay,
it's going well so far.
Logging in.
Oh, you have to do all of that.
No, I'm logged in.
You could have just said Finland.
What?
You could have just said Finland, and nobody would have.
Well, I want to be accurate. Where the heck is the map? There's usually a map that shows where things are going. There we go. I found the map. So for all time, we have Australia. We've got Indonesia. People have downloaded us in Indonesia.
Oh, that's exciting.
India, Austria.
Wow.
What else? But I think Vietnam, Taiwan, Philippines.
Wow.
Japan and Denmark.
That's incredibly cool. Whatever. However many, it's that come on.
Georgia. Not the state of Georgia, the country.
The country. When was the last time you got to play Georgia?
The former Soviet Republic. I never played there.
Right?
But we never played.
You never played Singapore before. Now you're playing Singapore. It's incredible.
Crazy. We have reach. Well, the reason I don't know what's going on in the world is because I have spent the past 72 hours on hold with unemployment, which is fun.
The last time I had done it during the pandemic, they had worked some of those kinks out, and it didn't take that long. Is this just a California thing? Is it different?
I think it's a California thing. It was really tough to get through. There was a problem with my claim. Which I knew once I explained one thing to them, I knew it would be straightened out.
Right.
I just had to get somebody on the phone.
Was the problem that you were an actor?
No, the problem was that they assumed that since I teach at Chapman University, that I'm on year-round contract and that I'm being paid over the summer
Right.
as a full-time professor. And I had to explain, no, I'm hired to teach particular courses, and when they end, I stop getting paid.
And then they assumed you were a priest, and you had to work that out.
Yeah, that was all. It's all very. But I have to say, transitioning into what this show is about, that the process of going through trying to straighten everything out with unemployment put me in the exact same emotional place that this movie put me in.
Oh boy, oh boy.
It was same. It was that same. Is everything in my life going to work out, or is it going to be a disaster?
So did you get what you wanted out of the experience? Okay.
Got through to somebody about 2 hours ago after starting Monday morning.
Wow. Well, congratulations. That is a painful experience.
Yeah. And I didn't have to kill anybody. I didn't have to invade anybody's home. I didn't have to crack any safes. It worked out with a phone call.
Boy, if only you had talked to James Caan before he had his experiences.
Yeah, I could have settled everything down for him.
There was things I wanted to pull from this. I didn't have time because I have been in editing kind of a frenzy with a new job that came in and setting up project files and video stuff. So I messed up. I'm sorry.
You didn't mess up. Oh, well, before we get too far into the movie, I want to praise your shirt, man.
Oh, thank you. This is my Michael Mann shirt. That
is just an extraordinary shirt.
Well, thank you. I'm very pleased. It's my I had a T-shirt on and I was like, no, I'm gonna wear my Michael Mann shirt for this show.
It's very Crockett and Tubbs,
right? I thought so. Thank you for noticing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love that. In fact, I covet it.
For those who are just listening on the podcast, Anthony's wearing a very nice rayon, a dark brown shirt with white speckles on it. And it's very 80s, very Miami Vice.
It looks like it's raining, that shirt.
I wish it were raining right now in real life.
Yeah. So, Thief, 1981. Michael Mann directs. James Caan stars.
Yep, that's the movie we did. That's what we saw. It wasn't any other Thief. It was that one.
It was that one.
1981.
Yeah.
With the interesting group of people. A lot of first-time interesting people there.
A lot of first-time interesting people, and a lot of people with some interesting backgrounds.
Did you see this movie before?
I had not seen it before.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Are you a Michael Mann enthusiast?
I would say I am a fan and an enthusiast. I would not call myself an aficionado.
Okay.
But I'm not really an aficionado of anything other than To Kill a Mockingbird. That's
you like some seafood, but you don't want to go overboard. I understand.
that would be my mafia name, Fishy Anato. Hey, Fishy. Hey, Fishy, how you doing? In fact, I think Fishy Anato is in this movie.
He may be. Yeah, he's definitely. Yeah. He was a consultant.
Yeah,
for sure. So this was your first time seeing this. That's really interesting. Okay, cool. I'd seen this before a few times, and
I knew that. I knew that you had seen it before. You know how I knew that?
I told you.
No,
probably.
It's a movie.
Okay, fair enough. There's a bunch I hadn't seen the one from last week before, so there are plenty of movies I haven't seen, but I've seen the Michael Mann movies.
Okay, and I guess you haven't seen 27 Dresses before either.
No, that was new. Brand new experience for me.
Okay.
Brand new. What a remarkable show that in the same season we're doing that film and Thief. I just think that's really, it's great. So okay. I guess you're
still waiting to find out if I liked it.
No, we'll get to that. I don't want to. I'm very curious, but I know we'll get to it.
Okay.
Was it what you expected?
Yes, it was. there was one aspect of it that wasn't what I expected, but that I loved.
Okay.
Oh, I spilled some beans.
You said you loved something.
I did love something about it.
Okay.
So we know I loved at least one thing.
What were the circumstances of your viewing of this movie? How did you watch it?
I watched it as I watch all our movies. I watch it sitting close to my large computer screen. I have a large screen and earphones so that I can hear every word. And then I have another computer next. Oh, I hit my microphone. I have another computer next to me to take notes on as I'm watching the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And did you watch this? What time of day did you watch it? Were you having a drink, or were you? I
watched it this morning.
Oh, okay. All right. This is a very late night movie. This would be a tough movie to watch in the daytime in many respects.
Well, I started watching it at 5 a.m. because I wanted to finish watching it before the unemployment office opened.
Okay. Okay. So it was that kind of day. So you had a great viewing of this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what'd you think of it?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
I thought you were going to enjoy it.
And what was interesting and curious to me about it is that, well, should we tell about let's tell about the movie before we get into the details. So I pitch it to you.
Oh, well, okay. This is Thief from 1981. It's, as we had said, starring James Caan, but it also stars Tuesday Weld. And Willie Nelson notably has a couple of cool scenes in it. Jim Belushi is in it in his first film, I believe. Dennis Farina is his first film. And my personal new love affair, Robert Prosky, it is also his first film, which blew me away. I thought he'd been acting for 20 years before this movie.
Forever.
Right?
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it.
First film.
Not just because he's that guy, but also because he's so goddamn good in the movie. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So this is based on a crime novel about a Chicago-based jewel thief, an expert safecracker and jewel thief. Probably one of the best in the business. He runs his own crew, which is just Jim Belushi and another guy, and he has it made. Like, he does really, really well. And through interesting kind of plot twist early on in the movie, a deal that he's just done kind of goes haywire, and the mob ends up kind of ending up with his money and his jewels. So he kind of goes in like a tough guy to get his money back, which is his money. And Robert Prosky, who's the head of the mob family that he's dealing with in this case, makes him an offer to come work for him. And it sounds like a really sweet deal. And so he takes the job, and it's what happens to him as a result of switching up and taking this job. He also is in the process of kind of developing a relationship with a local waitress. That's Tuesday Weld. And you get to know some of his backstory also through the Willie Nelson character, who is his teacher, like his mentor in the art of safecracking,
and his friend when they were in prison together.
Right, exactly. And who is now currently also in prison and wants him to get him out. So classic hard-boiled, story. Classic.
And the other element of it that is classic is that it is the old one more shot and I'm out.
Right.
I'm going to do this one last thing and then I'm out. For himself, for Tuesday Weld, I'm going to go clean. Yeah. But what I thought was so interesting was there's one moment when he says to Belushi, I'm out after this job. And Belushi says, are you happy? And he doesn't respond.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't answer that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Foreshadows the whole movie in a way.
Yeah, it really does. have you seen what other Michael Mann movies did you see from this period? Did you see Manhunter?
I saw Manhunter.
Okay.
Yes.
This is
which also starred William Peterson, who made his film debut in this as a split-second bouncer at a bar.
Yeah. The movie is also incredible for well, it's really notable for one reason, for a lot of reasons, but the main reasons why it's really kind of classic and it got a cult following is that the advisors on this film, Michael Mann got actual thieves and jewel like ex-cons and guys who used to really do this stuff for real on board as the technical advisors, and he gave them parts in the movie, as well as cops who used to bust these guys in real life. So the whole background of this movie, all the actors in it, all the cops and the thieves and the mafia guys are all like the real thing, except he actually switches it up so that a lot of the criminals are playing cops in the movie.
Right. Farina, who plays a mobster,
was a cop.
Actually busted Santucci once, who plays one of the cops.
Did he actually do that? I didn't know.
Actually arrested him once.
Wow.
Wow. Which is crazy.
Yeah, it's really it's really crazy.
And there was another story that I heard, which was that when they were all hanging out, the cops and the criminals, that the criminals knew when the statute of limitations had run out on certain jobs that they had done. So they would talk about them with the cops because the statute of limitations was over. So they could talk about how they did them.
That's incredible.
Is just nuts.
That's incredible.
And they're all hanging out together. They all grew up in the same neighborhoods. They went to the same schools. They all knew each other already.
Yeah.
Which is a trope in itself in a lot of films.
It certainly goes back all the way to James Cagney and those early gangster movies. This feels a lot to me like a Cagney movie. This really would have been James Cagney, I think, back in the 30s.
Very much so. And another thing it reminded me of is a lot of the dialogue and the way Jimmy was speaking in it is very Damon Runyon and Guys and Dolls. Like he is speaking in full sentences like this, the way they did in Guys and Dolls.
I read an interesting thing about that, actually. You may have read this as well, but apparently when he was working on the character, and Caan is really proud of this movie. He is on the record for saying this is, I think, his favorite film that he did and his favorite performance. Certainly is the favorite scene that he ever did, he thinks, is in this film. But in working on the part, he wanted to make sure he knew the guy didn't suffer fools and had a time limit. He was always, he never could spend any more time on anything than he had. So he was a guy that spoke incredibly clearly with as little complication as possible so that people would understand him exactly the first time and he wouldn't have to repeat himself.
Yeah.
And you can really see that kind of detail in the character, like the work that he did on this part. You can really see that kind of detail going into it. Really, really remarkable. I hadn't seen it in a while, and I got with it more this time than I did. I hadn't seen it maybe in 15 years.
Okay, now I want to ask a couple of questions because you're the film genius.
No,
you are.
No,
there were some things that occurred to me as I was watching the movie, and I want to hear from you whether you think I'm incredibly off base or out of my mind for thinking this. The scene that Caan is most proud of, apparently, is that scene in the diner where he tells his life story and the prison story to Tuesday Weld. That reminded me, that whole scene from when he picks her up and gets her, that reminded me of, I felt that Michael Mann was trying to channel some John Cassavetes direction in that scene, in that sequence. I don't know if it was improvised. It certainly felt like it was somewhat improvised, or not completely, but around a story like that he was allowed to play and make the story his own. And even Tuesday Weld, the way she was made up and the way she was playing it seemed to be a bit of a Jenna Rollins.
That's interesting. I can see that.
Where I felt like I was seeing that influence.
Wow, I hadn't thought of it, but I think you're really right about that. They are two characters in a way out of. It's like I could see Cassavetes making another movie about these same characters that goes in a different direction, but it intersects at that diner.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's that scene specifically. It wasn't throughout the whole movie, but that scene specifically, I felt like I was seeing that influence. And then another movie, not that was an influence on this because it's much more recent, but this film, although it was paced very slow. It was.
You think Thief is paced slowly?
Well, hear me out.
Okay.
I didn't feel like it felt slow, but I felt like it had this sort of measured, relentless pace to it that wasn't fast the way but what it reminded me of in terms of the emotional, it felt like a slow moving freight train to me, an unstoppable freight train crushing everything in its path. And it reminded me of a much faster paced movie, but emotionally the same, as Uncut Gems, where through the whole movie, I felt like it was moving down this track that it couldn't get off of, crushing everything in its path and leading to this inevitable ending.
I have Uncut Gems in my notes too. I felt that.
I'm not out of my mind.
I really felt that. And I agree. I think that, the relentless kind of like methodical pace is right on. I disagree a little bit in terms of, maybe it's just like maybe we're disagreeing on a language a little bit, but to me, it's unbelievably fast paced in terms of the editing. They cut into the middle of scenes. They cut out of stuff. Like, there is no story fat here. They really don't have any like extraneous stuff. So it's very streamlined that way. It's extremely fat free.
I agree. I just mean that things don't happen fast,
right?
The way they happen in a modern movie.
It's got that character study feel to it.
Yeah.
Where it's really also about hanging out with this guy and getting to figure out what makes him tick, Yeah.
Like the burglary. The burglary it's told in slow, meticulous detail.
Now, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, the burglaries are really, really cool. And some of the coolest ones that have ever been put on film. Michael Mann made sure that all the equipment was the actual stuff. James Caan trained on the actual drills, these giant, like 200-pound magnetic drills that would attach themselves to the doors, and really heavy, hard machinery to operate. And, apparently James Caan got it down really well, but you can just see him doing all this stuff. And it's very like a documentary. It's cool looking. It's really got that Michael Mann, kind of sheen to it, but it's all just really happening.
Yeah. And those magnesium rods
at the end, oh my God,
real magnesium rods.
Yeah,
on
that's
fire.
The real thing. So, you're constantly you're also in extremely real and interesting, gritty Chicago locations. Like, you feel like you're in the actual bars and the actual garages and the actual places that these people really did inhabit. And knowing how much how much research Michael Mann did on, Chicago criminals. I mean, that's his thing. I'm sure it's just just full of real stuff, you know. I mean,
and that's my favorite cut in the whole movie is the cut from the suburban house that he's just bought for him and Tuesday Weld. This beautiful, pristine, angular, mid-century, modern suburban house. And they cut from that to the most desolate, the junkyard with the cars and everything, just the most decrepit thing that you see. And you see that juxtaposition of his fantasy that he wants and the reality of where he lives his life.
And actually the thing he actually really likes and wants is that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
There's it's full of incredible photography too. It's really an eyeful. And it reminds me a lot of like William Friedkin. I think Michael Mann must be a Friedkin, you know, devotee. Also funny, a Chicago filmmaker.
I thought of that because of all of the L train, all of the scenes that are shot under the L train.
There's that. And then there's just the sense of, it just feels like it doesn't, whether or not they had permits to do this, it doesn't feel like they did. It has that same feeling of like the French Connection, where you just feel kind of like, oh man, these actors are actually kind of in danger. There feels to be kind of a dangerous quality about this movie. And it must be said, I mean, and I know this is probably one of the things you responded to it with such glee over, but it's got to be one of the most nihilistic films I've ever seen. I mean, it is. Those are my one of the coldest visions of humanity that I've ever seen in a movie.
I like that you identify that as something that's near and dear to my heart.
Well, I like Satanists chasing after an RV. Everybody's got something. Do you have? I mean, in a movie just chock full of great photography, great nighttime photography. There's two shots in the very beginning that kind of blew me away, and they're really weird. They're weird shots because they're kind of B-roll, but they're not. And I don't know if you noticed this. The movie starts and it's just rain. You just hear rain. You don't see anything at first, which is kind of murky and great. And then the movie opens and you see the city of Chicago at night, and they're headed to a job, right? They're headed to do this job in the rain, and it's two beat up cars. It's Jim Belushi and it's James Caan. They're driving to the job, and it's the city looks incredible. And there's this shot out the windshield of the street, and all the streets are slick with rain. In every shot, the streets are wet in this movie. They paid truck to be there the entire time and wet the streets down. And there's this shot down the street, and because of the reflections in the street lights make this perfect vector down, like a perfect video game vector down to the center and up. So it's this X, it's this perfect X, right? And everything is like mapped out and all lined up. They go and do the job, which takes about 2 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that. They get the gear, they get the stuff they're looking for. They trade their old junk cars for their real cars, which are fancy cars, which have been hidden somewhere, and they drive off. Next time we see that setup is now it's after the job, out his windshield, and the street's just like a mess. The vector's trying to be there. You see the street lights, but they're not making the pattern, and it's all jumbled. And to me, it was like right away, they're going before the job, on the job, everything's right on. And the minute it's over, he's in trouble. It's chaos.
Wow. I did not notice that. I had tiny little things that I loved. My actual favorite moment in the whole movie, tiny little detail, is when he gets the news that Willie died.
Oh, Oh, that
And
scene.
that scene is incredible. And I heard the story about him staring at the actor who gives and scaring the crap out of the actor. But Tuesday Weld does a thing in that scene where she's standing next to him and she doesn't put her hand on his shoulder. She doesn't hug him. She reaches up with her hand and sort of with two fingers clasps the placket of his shirt a little bit, like right over his heart. And it was so touching to me that she just puts her hand over his heart and holds his shirt for a second. The other thing that I thought was, you talk about actors being in danger. Belushi's stunt when he gets shot, it's him.
Yeah, it's him.
Did that.
Yeah.
They show the whole thing in slow motion.
There must have been like 30 pounds of squibs on his chest.
He goes flying through the air. He hits that van. He hits the pavement. There's no mattress there. I don't know how he did that.
Well, he was young, and
that's true. I did.
He well padded.
He's also well padded. Yeah.
You know, look. Let's not forget the stunt work on the beach, because he did some moves on the beach that were. We'll get to that. We'll get to that later. Yeah, there are incredible little moments and details and stuff. Do you have I mean, we already talked about the diner scene. Let's unpack that a little bit more, because that is, to me, that's like a centerpiece scene that's incredible.
Yeah, spectacular.
It's a little confusing though, because, and I heard there was some editorial issues and confusion in the making of it, because it's not really clear whether it's kind of like they're playing it's a first date and they don't know each other, and they're kind of playing like they've had a relationship. There's kind of it's a little unclear, I thought.
I don't know. I've had first dates where I talked about, marriage and living the rest of our lives together. Didn't you?
I believe that. It's just there were certain details about how they interacted that felt like there was literally confusion about it. And I remember reading about this. There was literally something happened with that they either didn't have time to shoot some little piece that I don't know, but outside of that, the scene is just incredible. And I see the John Cassavetes influence there in the characters and stuff, but it's so much more carefully shot than anything Cassavetes really did. That would have been a big mess, which was his style. But Michael Mann is so careful about telling character through how he's shooting as well. Like, so that scene starts and it's in a wide, and they sit at this booth, and it's at a diner that's like about 4 stories above a highway. It seems to span a highway with traffic going in both directions. And in that wide angle, you see the booth, and you see where James Caan sits is on the right side of traffic, and you see all the red lights, and on her side you see traffic going the other way. So they are literally going in opposite directions, like emotionally, and in that shot, traffic's just not going the same direction. And it's a really long scene, which then they start doing in close-ups a lot. And there's the moment where he makes this long confession about his past, and she finally decides to maybe go for this guy. Camera pulls back over her shoulder to a 2-shot where it's the first time they've been in the scene together.
Right.
And I don't know, that's kind of simple 101 stuff, but to see it applied to this real location, obviously they had only so much time to shoot this because it was at night and the sun was going to come up, and to have this really clear, clean plan that worked about shooting and telling story and character at the same time, I thought it was just fantastic.
Well, and you can call it 101 stuff, but it's 101 stuff because it works.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I mean, why would you break that rule? Why would you break that rule if it's not going to tell the story?
Well, you'd break the rule if you were Cassavetes and your shooting style was about telling something else about the characters. But in a movie that's so about methodical, clean driving forces in this guy. This incredibly clean, like precise. It's very kind of like a Fritz Lang way of working. It's so clear.
Well, you know me. That's my kind of story. That's my kind of visual storytelling. I like it when it all adds up. I just watched this movie. Did you see the movie Nobody with Odenkirk?
Not yet. I want to. I hear it's great.
It's got some fun stuff like that too. You know, like him being boxed in by circumstance, and there's a shot of him at his desk, and the camera's low, and there's stuff on the desk, and he's boxed in. You know, and I love stuff like that.
Yeah, it's called what? There's a word for that. Metonym, antonym. Is that what it is?
I don't know.
It's similar to a metaphor, but it's different. It's a different way of doing it. This gets really esoteric, but here we go. Went to film school. What do you want me to do? Antonioni, the Italian filmmaker, was famous for doing this in movies where up until him, directors would create scenarios that were very much like a metaphor for what the character was going through. It wasn't the same, but it was similar poetically. But Antonioni started putting the characters directly in the scenarios that they were in emotionally. So, for instance, if a movie was a scene was about characters who were adrift, he'd literally put them in the ocean on buoys and do the scene there. So they would literally be adrift as characters. So there's something very kind of like forceful about that. And you could see it all over this too.
Yeah.
The situation he's in emotionally is literally like represented on screen. Particularly even in the way he breaks into safes, because what I think is really different about this movie, actually, most of the time thieves, or jewel thieves in particular, high-end thieves in films, are really super fancy people.
Oh yeah, Cary Grant, right?
Right. You think of cat burglars and stuff with leather gloves and fancy. Yeah. And this guy, he is the most brutalist. Like, he attacks these safes. He's
like an auto mechanic.
Yeah, it's violent and with powerful tools, and it's just unrelenting.
Yeah, it's crazy. And what is it about Caan that this goes back to our discussion about him in Misery. He can take it, like you said when we were watching Misery, that he can take a beating like no other actor in the world.
Yeah.
But the thing I noticed, even before he gets beaten up in this movie, he always walks like a guy who's just had the shit kicked out of him.
I think at that age, Jimmy was walking. Had the shit kicked out of him?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, he did all his own stunts for years, and I think by the time
he's got his shoulders up, and he's walking like a guy who can barely move.
I think he probably broke every bone in his body. That guy, like he wrecked himself. Plus, he did stuff off. Like, not for movies. He did boxing and he did race car driving and stunt work just for fun. Like, that was the kind of guy he was.
He gave me a pair of boxing gloves for my 13th birthday.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, He gave us a dog too. He gave us a dog
for Dad's birthday.
The dog we grew up with. This is actually one of the weirdest and most amazing things, that we would have a dog growing up that was given to us by a Corleone.
Yeah. And I mentioned that to Scott Caan when I was working with him, that your dad gave us the dog. And Scott just was like, huh.
Yeah, he loved that story.
Yeah.
It was very meaningful for him. Clearly, Dad's relationship with his dad meant a lot to him.
Yeah.
Well, to heck with it.
That's why we bonded so much.
Scott, if you're listening, I hope you can learn. We appreciate these things. One day when you're old, you'll appreciate it too.
Yeah. And I'll give you a dog.
Well, a hot dog. Maybe.
Yeah.
What about Robert Prosky, for goodness sake?
So spectacular. In that guy, You cannot tell me that was his first performance in a movie.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's like he'd been doing it forever.
He must have been a Chicago theater actor before this. Like he had to have been, right? Come on. You can't just act like that out of nowhere.
I think he was a prison warden before this movie. No, I don't know.
Wow.
He has to have been in a member of some precursor to Steppenwolf. Those kinds
has to
have been.
That he's just, it's one of the great bad guys, you know. It really it's like that scene my other favorite scene is another scene at a restaurant, and it's the scene with him and Caan.
Oh my God. And you like him so much. You think you're saying, oh, come on, Jimmy, go with him.
Yeah.
He wants to be your family. He's a good guy. He wants to take care.
And then he's going to sell you a baby.
Yeah.
When he's going to sell him, and the whole, because James Caan wants to adopt a baby, a child in this movie with Tuesday Weld. And they even go to an agency to see if they can get an adoption. And with his background, there's no way. And there's a big harangue at the agency, and Prosky at this meeting later is like, why didn't you come to me? I can, whatever you want. I get you anything you want. I get you a house. You got a house. You want a kid? I get you a kid. What kind of a kid you want? And the scene goes from like this warm, fuzzy feeling of we got this guy wrong all along to he's the most evil person.
But it completely suckered me, because his argument that like these moms, you know, the kids got no chance with this mom, you know,
but you know, yeah.
But
man.
But you know me, I always want, you know, Jerry Zaks used to say in rehearsal, he would say, keep the possibility of a happy ending alive as long as possible. And that's my character flaw as a person. Like, I wanted to believe it's going to be okay.
I knew it was bad.
Because you're a cynical son of a bitch.
Don't take the deal. You're better off as a lone agent.
And you're usually right, and I'm usually wrong.
It was, you know what it reminded me of a lot was it reminded me of Chinatown and the Noah Cross stuff, like the way that John Huston's, you realize how evil he is slowly, but he's equally kind of like affable and welcoming and likable at first, but then there's this like undertone of absolute horror of going on. Yeah, and then of course his character at the end, they shoot him upside down at one point. They flip the camera upside down in this perspective thing, and he goes off, and it is terrifying.
Yeah,
I was gonna actually grab some of that speech because that was one of my favorite things in the movie. We can't play it. It's the filthiest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. I have to ask you a question though. In the scene where Caan shows up at his house to kill him, and Prosky is in the living room with his bodyguard fella, and the body or henchman or whatever you want to call him, and he says his henchman says, "Do you want some milk?" He says, "Nah." And his henchman gets up to go to the kitchen to get the milk. Did you notice his pants?
They were unbuckled. I was
trying to figure out why. I mean, it's such a great touch, but like, is it because he just had a big meal? So I'm
hoping that's.
But it was such an odd little detail that his pants are unbuckled and his belt is undone, and like that old guy thing of, oh, I ate too much. So
yeah, you know, I think that's what it was. I'm gonna hope that's what that was.
Yes, yeah. It has to have been what it was.
I do have a couple of, I have a couple of things that I didn't love when this time out.
Let's hear them.
I thought, I think the first half is perfection, literally just like print, cut, that's it. Don't have to make another gangster movie ever again. It's perfect. Doesn't fall apart to me at all, but there was something about I feel like they ran out of money, and that By the time they got out of Prosky, by the time they shot Prosky, there's just was like they had 2 hours and they had to get him out of that house. So the last part of it where he shoots Dennis Farina, and Farina has a giant afro and he's shooting this giant fake looking gun. It literally, like, the last few minutes literally kind of look like it's from like an early Steven Seagal movie. Like, it's really off what the rest of it is to me.
Yep.
They also don't set up that he has they don't set up well that that he's wearing chest armor, which had never been in a movie before. So apparently when they showed this film, the audience was deeply confused because they'd never this was new. So they don't really show him taking the vest off.
Yeah, they don't make it clear.
No. And I feel like I was also talking to Amelia, and I watched it together, and I was talking to her about what she thought of the movie and stuff, and she was like, she liked it. There were things she did, and I was like curious because she loves movies like this, and she liked a lot about it, and she likes James Caan. But I realized when she was talking about it that she was just like, I don't know, something about it left me cold. There was something about they put a lot of effort into the Tuesday Weld part of the movie. And yet there was something missing about her deciding to do this, go along with this.
Especially the way she's introduced on their first date, when he shows, not first date or 40th date, you don't know which. Yeah. And he shows up late and he practically beats the crap out of her getting into the car.
Yeah, it's a weird, and it's weird and offensive, but I went with it because it's like, okay, this is extreme characters. What's going on? But after they spend so much energy on their meeting and on that scene and on the diner scene, on her, she's the answer to his problems, the mother of his children, everything and she goes along with it. I buy her going, but they didn't really make good on her character. I feel like they owed it to her after setting all of that up so much to give a little bit more to her.
A little more closure,
a little more complexity to her reality.
Okay. I go along with that.
There's time for like 10 minutes of hypersexualized drilling into safes. They could have spent like another minute and a half with why Tuesday Weld is going for this.
I wasn't turned on by that stuff at all.
That's a good thing.
One more thing about the drilling into the safes, though, what I thought was really cool, and maybe you've already touched on this a little bit, is that in every other movie where they have to break into a safe, and you talked about it already, in essence, when you're talking about how classy the Cary Grant is in
the normal jewel thief in the movie, yeah.
But even the tech of the break-in, this is the anti-Mission Impossible breaking. Everything's dirty and hammering and
crowbars and smashing stuff, and it is dirty and grimy.
Yeah, but also you get the feeling what it must actually really be like for those guys.
It has a feeling of authenticity as a crime movie that's kind of like there aren't that many that have this level of like, wow, this feels like it's the real deal.
Yeah.
Okay. It bites them in the ass once. Another thing I didn't love, it's where the movie went just a little bit I was like, oh, perfect, amazing, the best Michael Mann movie ever. And then there's the scene where he gets brought into the precinct and gets beat up by a bunch of guys who used to be jewel thieves who are pretending to be cops, and none of them can act. Right. And it's like 7 of those guys pretending to beat him. And then there's a scene, and it doesn't, like, they didn't really capture that to me. They didn't really capture it. And then immediately after the beating, he's spotless and has no bruises or anything. Yeah. Just, I liked the way that, that was handled in other movies a little bit better. Like it just lacked a little bit of authenticity. And then they do cut to one of the most awkward, we did the deal. Now we're on vacation. Let's take a couple of weeks in Mexico. I had a terrifying moment there. There was a moment where I was sweating and shaking with terror.
because I was thinking to myself, if this is a freaking dream sequence,
I know, right?
I'm going to go out of, I'm going to lose my mind.
I thought it might have been.
He's sitting in, he's just cracked the safe. Belushi has gone into the safe to get the diamonds. He sits down and lights a cigarette and starts getting a dreamy look in his eyes, and we're on a beach. And I thought, if this is his fantasy, I'm going to kill myself and then Michael Mann.
Yeah, I felt a little bit like that anyway, because I was like, after that, $1 billion heist that they do, and it's like, they go to San Diego. They're like, and it's clearly like, it's kind of a crappy beach. It's not that.
Yeah. No, but to them, that's like going to St. Bart's,
I guess so. I just felt that there, something about it, maybe Michael Mann was in on it, but somehow Jim Belushi cavorting on the beach wrecked a certain part of my heart. Like, it really made me uncomfortable and sad. Then we picked up a little bit. And then we got the heist. Awesome. But there was just a little bit. Did you not feel that there was just like a little bit less irony at the end of this than maybe you were hoping for?
Yeah.
Because it seems a little bit like a cool 80s movie ending when it's really about a guy deciding to go willfully into hell and destroy everything in his life.
Right. Because, for instance, why doesn't he do what he does and then go off to meet her?
Exactly.
Right.
I think that the only thing I could say that they didn't quite nail or get, or it was, I don't know if it was James Caan or they shot it and they didn't get to use it or whatever, but it was just, there was the transference. There's the moment, for instance, in Unforgiven, where Clint Eastwood clicks over into the guy that you didn't want to meet.
Right.
And I feel like this movie really could have used that distinct click where you go, oh, this guy's broken. Like, he's broken himself. His motivations are now not something we could understand. It lacked something about it for me, but
what it needed was some scene where, for instance, if there was a scene where the baby won't stop crying and he realizes this dream is not what I thought it was. I am not up for this. That he snaps at the baby for crying, or he snaps at her and realizes I can't be that. But we never see that. We
never do. And in a reality setting, we know this guy with the trigger, the short trigger he's got, like, he is not okay. He's an angry, enraged, violent person whose half his life has been in prison. And it's, of course, you understand why, but he's a mess. And
he needs to see that, and she needs to see it so that she says okay and leaves.
Yeah, like her leaving because she actually becomes afraid of, like, doesn't want to be near him anymore would be an interesting choice. That he ruins it because he can't go back to her because she sees who he is finally.
Which would be similar to the end of Drive, where Drive, where he saves her.
Yeah.
But in order to save her, he has to reveal who he is, and that's why they can't be together.
Right. And even a little Taxi Driver in there too, where it's like, where Sybil realizes, it's a little obvious with their, like, I don't know why she actually goes on a date with Travis in the first place, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But, like, when she realized, like, oh, this guy's really not okay. Like, I don't feel safe or comfortable. I never really believed he would hurt her, but I feel like that, unfortunately, this movie kind of needed that or something. Yeah. My only complaint.
Another a shot that and sequence, again, we're talking about how there were things in this movie that worked but shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
The sequence with the tracker on the car, we get so far ahead. I got so far ahead. I knew so far ahead what had happened.
Mm-hmm. You mean when they on the bus?
On the bus, and that shot and the reveal of it being on the bus takes forever.
It's fantastic.
We are so far ahead. We know it's going to be there, and yet it works.
It works. Yeah, it works because it's also that shot's also there as a wonderful kind of act break, and it really also wouldn't have worked so well if they hadn't transitioned out of that into a new scene. If it had been a hard cut, it would have been too obvious. But this way, it was like it was a chance for you to kind of like think about the whole movie for a second,
right?
You know,
so go along. Excuse me, but you go along for the ride.
That's okay. You get a couple of those every show without anything. You don't hear anything from me. Boy, does the city look incredible. The so well photographed, and not the typical Chicago stuff. Like, you really haven't seen Chicago shot this way before. I don't feel like you really didn't see any of the typical skyline or any of the normal, attractions in Chicago that you would see in a Chicago movie, because it's Michael Mann. Obviously, he knows the town. Love that band at that bar.
Oh my God!
It was Mighty Joe Young and I forget the singer. They say it at the end of the movie.
Right, and you don't get a lot of music breaks like that in movies anymore. It reminded me of the music break in Bullet.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Real place. Real place. What else did I have in my notes? Oh, just like, man, so smart in how it's constructed that, it dawned on me after the movie was over that he really does ask. He is to her what Robert Prosky is to him. He does the same thing. And Willie Nelson kind of does the same thing. They ask the unthinkable, but something that can't be denied at the same time. It's really weird.
Interesting. I was blown away by how there were a couple of major characters in the movie who we never get to know at all. The other guy in his crew, that
Right.
actor gets no story, almost no lines. We don't know anything about him. He's a major character in the movie. He doesn't get any. He gets hardly any close-ups.
It's one of my favorite things about how it's made is those things. That was very.
I can hardly even remember what he looks like.
It's very Godfather that way. I mean, Godfather. I feel like that's in those movies too, where they're we've seen those movies like 800 times, so we know all the names now.
Right. But Johnny Ola, like a character.
First times you see it, you're just like, it's just this guy who's like, he's clearly important, but you never get to know. You only get to know through his actions what he is, which is also another thing I love about the movie is James Caan has all these cool businesses that he runs, I guess, as a front to what he really does.
Right.
So
the bar, the car lot.
Right. So his bar, I love the scenes in his bar, the way the bartender deals with him and how, generally the customers kind of seem to know him and what's going on and they give him some space. They stay out of his way. And how you get to know, like, you get to think about, like, a lot of great crime stuff, these backstories of how did the bartender get to this position? Like, he knows some stuff, he's in on it because he's.
Well, you know what that was modeled on? That was modeled on Mark Lynn Baker at the West Bank Cafe. Yeah, exactly the same thing. The way he runs his crime organization at the West Bank Cafe.
Right, right. That makes total sense. And
there's like 3 people in the world who will get that joke, but
yeah,
what the hell?
And hopefully they're tuning in. If they're not, well, there's going to be trouble.
Well, we'll have to send this to them.
So we really are pretty in lockstep about this movie, it seems like.
Well, the thing that blows me away is that you thought of Uncut Gems too.
I totally did.
Warms my heart.
I really did. I was like, there's a lot of movies it reminds you of, like a William Friedkin movie. It almost like feels like a Bresson movie too, like pickpocket or
So
something.
now
you
you're
know?
just so too highfalutin for me.
You got to teach that stuff this year. You got to watch it.
Oh dear. No, I teach budgeting and
I'm
permitting.
even love the Tangerine Dream, but then
Oh,
again, they go to the beach and we get this like 80s guitar solo. Michael Mann refused to give up that sequence. He was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it until I get it right. He did it again in he doesn't do it in the Keep because that's a World War II movie, but he does it in Manhunter, and he does it all of Miami Vice is that.
He wanted Belushi on the beach, man. You know,
he got it. He got the almost full frontal nudity he was looking for. just not from the person he was hoping from. He wanted Prosky. But he got Belushi.
Yeah.
To get naked.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
And I really wish I had pulled a picture of Dennis Farina's giant afro hair at the end of this movie, because I don't know what the hell.
Can we give a shout out to the Chicago accents, though? Oh my God, I love that accent.
Well, when it's the real thing, it's great. You know, I mean, like in here. James Caan, Brooklyn, Chicago, it's shifted around. But whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
Santucci.
James Caan.
Santucci.
Holy God.
Insane.
What a mess. I love how all the cops are like photographed to look as ugly as possible, too. Like they're all kind of like disgusting looking.
Well, and everybody in the movie is the interesting thing was that the one person in the movie who's in kind of not corrupt is James Caan. Because he actually is just authentically what he is. The cops are corrupt, the judges are corrupt, the other criminals are corrupt, and he's just a thief.
Okay. Sure. He's a thief and a murderer, but he's not corrupt.
He's not a murderer. He kills people, but he's not a murderer.
Okay. Is that I didn't know. Wait a minute. I thought somebody who killed people was a murderer.
We'll talk after the show.
Oh, this sounds fun. I didn't know I didn't know you could do that and not be a murderer. That's fantastic. Yeah. You like him because he has his code, but then so does Prosky, man. I mean, they're the same thing. Because Prosky, you could argue
that he lies.
No, he doesn't.
He does. He says, "I'm going to take care of you," and then he says, "And you can leave," and all that, and then he won't let him. He says, "You okay? That's fine. You do this job and you're out. Fine."
He got him a baby. You gonna leave after somebody gives you a baby? I don't think so. I could totally say that's justified. He's angry.
I got you a baby.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, ultimately, the other movie that it reminds me of is Raging Bull, and I think there's a real interesting connection there, because it's as much about just male simmering rage as Raging Bull is. It's almost the same movie in a lot of ways, except in Raging Bull there would be a dream sequence about going to the beach.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've covered all of our notes. Well, I've covered all of my notes.
Yeah, I got nothing else to say. See it, Thief. It's a good movie. It's a Michael Mann movie.
See Thief. It's good. You'll like it.
If you like James Caan, you got to see it.
Tell your friends about our show. Listen to it every week. And enjoy yourself.
That's the answer. God, it's pouring rain right now. Damn.
We have to pick we have to look up my friend Bo Baker on IMDb. Do you know Bo? You've met Bo, haven't you?
I don't know if I think I have, but I know him through your stories about Bo.
Yeah. Sound dude, Bo Baker. We got to look him up on IMDb and pick the movie that he mixed or boomed that we want to do.
Okay.
because he'll come on the show. He's like, when are you going to have me on the show? And he can tell stories. It'll actually be a night off for you and me. We can just sit there and Bo will tell stories.
Let's do one next week. Let's do it next week.
Okay. Then next week it's a Bo Baker movie. If we can get him, there's always a chance that he's going to be working.
I thought it was like a sure thing. All of a sudden there's problems.
No, it's a sure thing. But
like 2 seconds ago, you're like, anytime he's ready to do it. Like, and now it says like, well, I don't know if he's available. If we get him, I guess he'll be.
Got to do it when he has a hiatal hernia. I mean, he's on hiatus.
Okay.
But we'll figure out what we're going to do next week. And in the meantime, we hope that everybody has a fabulous week and tunes in again to watch my brother Anthony talk to that guy who doesn't really like movies.
Oh, you love movies.
Do I like movies again? Because
you like them now. Now you like them.
Okay. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.